Good afternoon, anti-novelists, friends, curious onlookers. It is a very, very rainy day on the cattle ranch, so I'm hiding in the library with you guys. So, yesterday, where I left off was asking you to think about what kind of story do you want to write. Does it fall more towards the conflict-driven narrative end of the continuum, or does it fall more towards the meditative narrative? Totally up to you, your decision, you decide. But here's the thing. As I'm writing in the book that I'm writing for you, Zettelkasten for Fiction Writers, where imagination finds order, I'm ready to take us to the next step. So we've been talking about the zero draft, okay? The zero draft is all of the components that you're collecting, that you're making your note cards, you're installing them in your note box, you're drafting and writing, all of those pieces. Those are all part of your zero draft. A zero draft is just the first steps towards creating a rough draft that you feel is becoming cohesive, okay? So you're just gathering your tools. Well, I got a question, and actually this refers to a question that I answered about this very same thing back in episode 9, very early on in my video channel content on the Zettelkasten for Fiction Writers book. So I will link that episode below because I actually read the chapter that this research helped to create. So I'm not going to do that again. If you want to see that, you can go over to episode 9 and see it. But for our purposes, I want to talk about collecting some information so that you can create what I call in the book the MVU, the minimum viable unit. A minimum viable unit is a unit of writing. It could be 500 words, it could be 1,000 words, but it's a unit that is a cohesive whole, okay? You might think of it as a scene or as a part of a scene, but it's something that sticks together. It's solid and it's gelled together, and you write it out and you're like, ooh, that's good. I want to talk about some of the research components that can go into creating that minimum viable unit. I'm going to use as an example my main female character, Tara. Over in my Zettelkasten, Tara's character number is 7110 because the 7000s is where book 1 of this trilogy lives. And Tara's cards specifically are the 7110s. So the .5 card is called Horsey Stuff, and it's where I break down that Tara had a childhood incident that resulted in a phobia of horses. This was just an idea that I had because, number one, in my novel, I wanted to pay homage and kind of write a love letter to the city that I live in, which is Kansas City, Missouri. I love my city, and I wanted to include some of the beautiful architectural and outdoor elements that the city is famous for. First and foremost being, we're known as the City of Fountains because of all of the beautiful Italian fountains and sculptures peppered around the city center, which we call the plaza. It's basically a big, huge, outdoor, European style, kind of Italian style shopping area. So, I wanted to pay homage to the plaza. Well, I already knew that Tara was going to work at the Nelson Atkins Museum because she is a museum researcher. So the museum is situated and actually I can tell you exactly, it's a 13-minute walk to the plaza from the museum. So these are the kinds of zero draft items that you're just randomly collecting. Is there a city that you want to include because you love it or it fascinates you? Are there elements of a particular place that you definitely want to include? Like, for example, super famous novel takes place at Yale University and literally carves up the university into this little magical realm of stuff going on, getting wacky, what have you. So is there a place, okay? That place is going to anchor your zero draft. Okay, does that make sense? So use a sense of place as a way into your story. Because then what I did is I simply did some research on the Nelson Atkins, the business hours, the name of the cafe that's in there. I made a note on Tuesday and Wednesday they're closed. It's a 13-minute walk down to the plaza, etc., and so forth. And then I have a big card on some of the features of the plaza, like the sculptures, the big horse fountains. The plaza is very well known for the horse fountains, and I even drew a map. This is all zero draft material. Now, you will do more of this kinds of research and exploration as you write further into your story. But in the beginning, grounding yourself in setting and place, which is where your scenes happen, grounding yourself in setting and place is a great first start. Thumbs up. Great first start, because then that's how you start to build out your world, because you know where you are. Now, if your place is entirely made up, let's say your story takes place in the year 3035 on some whole other planet, all right, kiddo, same thing. You're going to start mapping out the main areas of action, maybe the house where your character lives, the place where they go to work, a particular place where maybe some critical event, key event happens, whatever. But you're going to map it out. Ground yourself in a sense of place, and I promise it will serve driving your story. So that is how I did it for Tara. And then here is my card on research about the Nelson Atkins Museum, about the fountain basin, which is a beautiful sculpture within the museum in the cafe, etc., and so forth. And I've even got, this is a drawing of a cafe called the Roselle Court. Here's the sculpture surrounded by 12 zodiac signs, and then tables sprinkled throughout where people are served food, drink, what have you. So that all helped ground me in those places so that when I was ready to start writing these scenes to create my minimum viable units, I had all of that place information packed into my head. So based on what we've already covered, all right, you've started thinking about your character. You've started working on your character development. You've started working on what kind of story you want to tell based on the continuum of what it could be. And now I've asked you to start working on your sense of place and where things might happen. So I'm going to leave you there for today, because those are a lot of pieces to start gelling together to make that zero draft happen. So that is my next challenge to you, my writer friends and anti-novelists. Sketch out a sense of place. Give yourself an anchor point if you haven't done that already, so that you've got those details locked in, and then you can start populating it with things that can feed into your story and start driving that zero draft forward into a fleshed out, more rough draft. So that's where we will head next, is when the pieces start to gel together into narrative. What does that look like, and how do you drive that forward? So, as always, thank you, every single one of you. I love all of my subscribers. I do a happy dance every time I get a new one. It's just awesome, because that's how I know that I am showing up and being of service and helping you get your book written, because that's what this book is about. It's about getting your book into my hands. I want your book on my shelves. That is my wish. So, thank you all. I'm going to go back to writing. It's only noon here on the Cattle Ranch in the Midwest. I've got 1 hour until I need to join up for my mastermind group. So I'm going to do 2 writing sprints, get a little bit further into this material, and then I will take a break and pop onto my call. So have a great day. Got a long rest of the day ahead of us. So I will get lots of writing done, because it's my favorite kind of a rainy writing day. And hopefully you get some writing done too. I will see you tomorrow.